So this is session 3 of our English unit for this week on poetry. So we're going to begin by having a recap of what we've learnt so far. So if you've got some paper in front of you, I'd like you to answer these questions for me. What can you tell me about the poem Silver? What is it about? What features does it have? And there you're thinking about vocabulary and structure. So I'm going to read the poem out to you again, just so you can have a little listen, and then you can pause your video and have a go at answering those questions. Okay, so we've got Silver by Walter de la Mare. Slowly, silently, now the moon walks the night in her silver shoon. This way and that she peers and sees silver fruit upon silver trees. One by one the casements catch her beams beneath the silvery thatch. Couched in his kennel like a log, with paws of silver sleeps the dog. From their shadowy coat the white breast peep of doves in silver feathered sleep. A harvest mouse goes scampering by with silver claws and a silver eye, and moveless fish in water gleam by silver reeds in a silver stream. Okay, so if you take a few minutes just to answer those questions. Okay, so hopefully your answers will have talked about the fact that the poem Silver is set at the night time, and the theme is it's basically the moon and everything that would be casting its light on, giving everything a beautiful silver appearance. It's written in rhyming couplets. So we've got the first two lines rhymed and the second two, and so on. The author, he had chosen to use metaphors, similes, personification. He also had some alliteration. Now remember, alliteration is when you've got two or more words that begin with the same letter. So he had casements, catch, and there was another one. Obviously, he had structured it. He didn't choose to structure it in verses, but you do often see that in poems. Now, today's lesson, we are learning to use poetic devices. Now, poetic devices is basically all those things we've just talked about. How you structure a poem, for how you would like it to sound, with the rhyme. We discussed as well, didn't we, the syllables, the fact that every line had 8 syllables, because that was to do with how the author wanted it to sound, and to do with the metaphors, similes, and all those different figurative language forms that the author might use. So our task is going to be to write a poem, but to focus on a scene that contrasts with the original. So our original poem was called Silver and was about the moon. So we are going to write a contrasting poem today about the sun and in the daytime. And obviously the contrasting will be how the sun's rays are reflecting off different things. Now for that, our poem is going to be titled Golden, okay? Now also it says here that we will write in the same form as style as the original. That means we're going to repeat the way the author is repeated in Silver. About the actual word silver itself, we will repeat the word golden, and it's all to do with from the kind of the point of view of the sun and what it's casting its rays on. We're going to try, if we can, to make sure our lines have 8 syllables and also use the rhyming couplets. And it says as well, we will write and use a variety of poetic features. So we're going to have a go at also including some of those metaphors, similes, alliteration, personification. Okay, so Golden, that's going to be our poem. Now, as with all writing, as we've discussed, we always plan it. So the first thing we'll do is, just before we think about the actual structure and the lines, we're going to be thinking about just gathering some really good ideas. So I've got some photographs here of different scenes where obviously it's a sunny day, so it's taking place in the daytime, and the different things that the sun may cast its light on to have that part of inspiration for our poem. So we've got here and here. So I would like you to have a little look at them, and on some paper write any words that come to your head that you think would be good, any things that you can see the sun's rays reflecting off, like the water, the plants, the leaves. If you can think of now any metaphors or similes, so thinking about how brightly the sun's shining, you can add them in. So remember, you can look at both of those pictures. If you would also like to Google some pictures of scenes with the sun reflecting on it, and you've got an adult with you who can check that you're Googling safely, then that's fine as well, because these are just some ideas for inspiration. So if you pause the video now, and you can write me some notes of ideas of words or vocabulary or different types of figurative language you may use. Okay, so now you've got your ideas together, we're going to talk about actually how we then structure our poem. Now, in yesterday's lesson, we had a little go at this, didn't we? Writing a rhyming couplet from the poem Silver. So you've had a little bit of practice, and this is obviously writing a full poem. So you're going to use some of the ideas you've got, and remember, you will basically find 2 words that rhyme associated with the sun. Now it says, examples on previous page, they're actually on the next page here, so we'll look at them in a moment. So we said the easiest way is always to start with your rhyming couplet. Then you will think about ideas for your line 1 that will end with your rhyming word, counting the numbers of syllables you go, but you will think of what topic it's on. So for example, is it the sun shining on the trees, the leaves, plants, a river, whatever you would like. So once you've done that first line, you will then repeat that for the second line. So you'll be trying to build another line with the other part of the rhyming couplet. I've written here as well to use a thesaurus or the internet to find alternative word choices. So remember, if you're looking for other words that mean the same things, you're looking for synonyms. And they can be useful if you have more or less syllables. So for example, if you've written a lovely line that's only 7 syllables, you could always swap one of your adjectives, usually works best, for a longer word that would then take it to 2 syllables and fit in. That works for shorter words as well. And I've written at the bottom here, because you've written some phrases including metaphor, simile, personification, sometimes you may use them as your inspiration for a line and see what metaphors you've got or any other types of phrases. So remember, expanded noun phrases, they are phrases with an adjective in. We've looked at them in school before. You might have a really good one of them that you want to use, so then you would look at which rhyming words might fit and go from there. So here we've got golden. I have chosen the 2 rhyming words, sun and begun, and we've got some at the bottom as well, raise and gaze, detect, reflect, trees, breeze, light, bright, sight and flight. So I have started with sun and begun, and then I've thought that obviously at the start of the poem, if we look back at Silver, because that's always useful to refer back to the original poem for inspiration, I'll just get it up again. It says, slowly, silently now the moon walks the night in her silver shoon. So obviously the author here chose to begin the poem telling you basically what it's about, and it's the moon shining. So remember, whatever piece of writing we do, you always start with an introduction, and that lets the reader know what it's going to be about. So I chose to begin my poem like that, just introducing the fact that it's the sun. So burning brightly, the mighty sun climbs in the sky, the day has begun. Okay, so that is what I've chosen for mine, and that's got 8 syllables per line. Now you're welcome to use that one to begin your poem, or you could begin it a different way. You might want to use mine and just swap some words out like we do sometimes in school to get yourself started. Just remember, the first lines of any writing are always the trickiest. So do feel free to use this, and then you can carry on. Now, when we punctuate a poem, that can be a little bit tricky. Remember, your rhyming words always go at the end. So we've got burning brightly, the mighty sun, comma, and that separates our first line from our second line. And we've got, even though it's a comma and you wouldn't usually use a capital letter after that, you can do in a poem. You can also not use one, that's fine as well. And climbs in the sky, comma, the day has begun. Now here is a semicolon, but I am just going to swap that to a full stop because that's a little bit easier. Now, so I've got my, although that is in 2 lines separated with a comma, it does have a full stop at the end because that's the end of one idea. Now, when I write my next idea, I'll begin with on a new line with a capital letter, and I will separate both my lines with a comma, as I've done here, and then end them with a full stop. If you notice here, after climbs in the sky, there is a comma. With that phrase, climbs in the sky, day has begun, you take a breath there, so it's fine to have a comma if it's appropriate there. Don't worry too much about commas within those lines, just make sure you have them at the end of your first line and a full stop at the end. Now, you'll notice when we look at lots of poems, punctuation does differ slightly, and it does depend on how the author chooses to punctuate it. So if we look back at Silver, here, Walter de la Mare chose slowly, comma, silently, comma, because he's listing adjectives. Now the moon walks in the night in a silver shoe. Now he's used a semicolon, and that's what he's used at the end of each idea. Now he's chosen not to do a comma at the end of this line, and that is also fine. So it's up to you. And remember, when we talk about poetry and punctuation, as long as you consistently punctuate it the same all the way through, that is fine. So if you choose to use a comma at the end of this first line and then a full stop at the second line, that's what you continue to do all the way through. Now, this is actually your feedback task to send me this poem this week, so I can't wait to see what you come up with. Do remember though, poetry or just any type of writing, it is tricky. Don't think your ideas are going to come straight away. Have a little play around. Remember, cross things out on your paper that you'd like to swap, change words out and things like that. We are going to do editing in tomorrow's session, so don't worry too much if you feel it's not perfect yet. Remember, it's always best to come back to things with fresh eyes a little bit later or the next day, and that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. So I hope you enjoy today's task, and I'll see you soon.